Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Paul. It's good to be here with you again at OC Talk Radio, and I want to welcome all today to what I'm calling the inner depths of my soul. As our regular listeners know, I am prone to experiment with different forms of podcast. Most of the time I conduct interviews. Sometimes I just talk, and sometimes producer Paul and I talk. Today is altogether different. My dear friend Terry Hershey will interview me. Well, sort of. I will still take the lead, but Terry will ask questions of the experience I recently went through. So, Yo Hirsch, what's up, man?
Charles, how are you?
I am recovering, which we will talk about. Tell me, you just took a little sabbatical journey of your own, didn't you?
I did. It's an annual trip that I do with good friends. We go every year to a part of Europe, and we do wine tasting. It's two things. It's the love of wine. Well, my friend's a wine writer. He's a member of the clergy like I am, but he also is a wine writer in San Francisco. So he gets us into some pretty remarkable places. But it's also a look at history, too. For example, I was in Portugal. I just got back from Portugal. We were in a place where they made wine in amphoras. Amphoras are these giant clay pots. And that's the way the Romans made wine over 2,000 years ago. So, and they still make it that way this day in some of those wineries, which was kind of fun.
So what was the wine like in Portugal?
It's actually good. We were in a place that had 250 varieties of grapes that are not grown anywhere else on the earth.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's a whole different kind of wine then.
Whole different kind of wine. Yeah. Plus, as a scene wine that was made over 2,000 years ago, it was very hard for a kid who was raised Baptist who was told that Jesus only drank grape juice.
It's just a poor interpretation of the Greek word,
yeah, exactly. Right? Anyway, it was a great trip.
That's good. I'm glad. So let our listeners know and let you know from this point on, please know that the thoughts that's going to come out of my mouth today come from another newly recognized state of consciousness. So expect meanderings, ramblings, and I think that's because soul talk is not made for words. There's a line in the Bible that became really meaningful to me is that the Spirit speaks in moanings and groanings too deep for words. And I'm going to try to put these things in words. You see, I just returned 3 days ago from a 10-day self-discovery trip. And 6 of the days were spent in silence and sequestered silence. That means not only do you not talk, but you must stay by your cabin, and you have about an 8-square-foot area out in front that you're limited to that area, and you're not allowed to leave that area except to use a toilet or to fill up your water bottle. Other than that, you are night and day just in this extended time of silence. And believe me, the first day, the monkey mind goes crazy thinking, but by about day 3, the unconscious sort of takes over. But in the intermittent between that, there were 4 days of what's called ceremony, and it's song and guided reflections, and that take you into deep parts. And I want to tell you, Terry, I went into the deepest parts of my unconscious to look at hidden parts, and parts hidden because of shame and disgust and fear. And let me give you a quote that my wife gave me that came from Thomas Merton. I mean, it came from Richard Rohr quoting Thomas Merton, or talking about Thomas Merton. And he said, Thomas Rohr Thomas Merton warned against confusing an introverted personality with being a contemplative. They are two different things. The introvert finds solace in being comfortable, while the contemplative mystic and hermit use solitude to discomfort themselves. So silent solitude is not always blissful, but it is enlightening, more than anything I've experienced. But that's got to make sense to you, too, doesn't that?
I would resonate with that completely. Well, the discomfort thing is curious, but go on. So why did you choose this particular venue?
It was people I had done work with in the past, and I've worked with them on weekends, and weekends experience are not...
I don't mean these people. Why would you choose a place where you're going to go to that extreme?
I had no idea it was that extreme. Had I known that extreme, I would have probably double thought it. I had no idea that the silence was part of the process, that it was that deep of... I knew it was silence, but I did not know it was sequestered. I've had times of silence at the Abbey, but, you walk around, you take little hikes, you go to liturgy, what are they called? The offices.
The offices, the prayer. Well, that's almost, it's similar to tourism.
But
no, it is. I mean, yeah, you're taking pictures and you're having a good time, and I love going there, and I love being a part of that.
But I've done that in silence. Have you ever done that in silence?
I have many times.
Yeah, but it's still distracting. When you are locked in a room, there are no distractions. You have to deal with you. And you are the only thing you can deal with. And at first, the conscious self wants to fight that, or, leans toward that. The unconscious self doesn't want you to go there because it doesn't want you to get hurt. And yet at the end, in the middle of it, you end up going to that unconscious sort of deep soulful place. There was one thing that I recognized, Terry, that was really helpful before we get deep into it, and that after several days of silence, I concluded that which cannot be recognized cannot be reconciled. That which is not recognized cannot be reconciled. And the only way I can truly reconcile my inner wounds, my child wounds and adult wounds, I have to recognize them. I have to name them. I have to be able to know what they are before I can reconcile them. Otherwise, I'm recognizing something else. That's why I'm calling this unmasking the inner pain, because what I have concluded was pain was not really pain, but a mask of pain hiding an even deeper pain below it.
Yes. Yes. And the naming thing is very difficult to do, because that invites what you're talking about, which is something deeper.
Yeah, and it...
So,
go ahead.
Keep going.
Well, I say, and I have to be careful, because if you name it, then all of a sudden you box it, and you can't put a box around it. It is somewhere between needed to be named, but the essence is unnameable.
Yes.
So last week I discovered recognition of these things is steeped in discomfort. Recognition can be disgusting, shameful, and reviling, as well as the most blissful feelings imaginable. I was confronted by my most threatening demons, and also provided with an inevitable solution, the only sane solution, and that is love. And it's love in a whole different form that I'd ever looked at love before. My purpose in going there, that I think I'll talk about later, was my inability to accept love, and this is what my subconscious, unconscious led me to. So before we go on, let me tell a story that will sort of get us into the groove here, as if we should be already into the groove by now. But I'm going to briefly tell a story about my childhood, because this comes to play You know, and I'm not talking about the wounded inner child. I'm talking about the wounded adult child that was impacted by early childhood. Now, from about 2 years old till almost 8 years old, I was homeless. I was raised by a needy mother. My mother and father divorced when I was very young, like at 2 years old. I was raised by a needy mother who couldn't take care of me, so she sent me off to relatives. And I would live with these relatives for what I thought was going to be a long time, one of whom even said, "Would you like to live with us for the rest of your life?" And I said, "Sure," only a couple months later to be shipped off to another place. Well, that happened 3 or 4 times. And the result of that, and that was capped off then by my father taking me, and my father drank a quart of liquor a day, and I had to just walk on eggshells around alcoholism and his unprecise boundaries, his blissful love, and his bouts with strong anger. And so that just made me feel, basically, Terry, unwanted, unloved, and really not even just unwanted, but unwantable, not deserved to have any love. Now that has haunted me my entire life.
At what age were you when you knew that?
40.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing to talk about that a minute, Charlie, because the power of that is you talked about pain. There's pain up above and there's pain underneath. I end up boxing, fighting all these things in my younger life, and I didn't know what I was fighting because I didn't name it either till I was in. I don't know what to name it. I didn't know what to name that child.
And you've got, and that's what I said. That's which cannot be recognized, cannot be reconciled. And so if you can't name it, you can't fix it. If you don't know what it is, you can't fix.
Before you were able to name it, when you were younger, because you were clergy, you did all kinds of things that had to do with, quote, we could call it self-discovery and or enlightenment in religious terms. But I mean, what were you wanting to fix back then?
You know, I don't really feel a sense that I was trying to fix anything with me. I feel like now looking, I was trying to fix other people, but it was really, the truth is, it was me that was trying to get fixed, but I did it under the guise of fixing other people. They were the ones, I was the one okay. They were the ones that needed my okayness, when the truth was I was not okay, and I needed my okayness.
Right.
But I took it out on them. Did you do that?
Oh, yeah, and I took it out on myself, too, with a lot of just self-destructive stuff.
Yeah, I did. Well, I spent that's why I called it the 70s, my dark years. I can hardly remember them because I took it out on myself by, just staying alcoholed up or drugged up, just numbed, that I didn't have to feel anything. I avoided feeling anything.
Yeah, and religion was able to do that for me, too, to stay numb with religion. Religion offered that to me.
That was my next step. Is when I quit abusing substances, then I went right into religion, which was just another number. It just was another means to numb the pain that was inside of me.
Yeah.
And I discovered, now what I discovered on this retreat, as I said, that I had, since my childhood, I had always felt this fear of abandonment and rejection, obviously, by these different people moving me on. And I thought that was my pathologies, abandonment. My psychiatrist just told me 6 months ago, you still have not dealt with abandonment. And I said, what are you talking about? And he says, nope, you've not even opened the door to it. You don't even know it. And what it really was masking was an excruciating pain of not being wanted and abandoned by my tribe and the most important members of my tribe, which were my parents. And we have since come to know that safety, acceptance, and love are the key things in raising a child. And if they don't have that, they're going to be screwed up, and they're going to do screwed up things somehow to somebody, and mostly to themselves.
Right. Yeah, we turn it inward.
We turn it inward. So going into the retreat, I wanted to discover the obstacle that was preventing me from accepting love. Now, I understood pretty quickly that I was the obstacle to accepting love, but my question really became soon in the retreat, how am I the obstacle? If I'm an obstacle, how do I manifest that being an obstacle? And the answers that came to me, first of all, was the experience, the fear of this disabling fear of horrendous pain, and that pain of being unwanted and unloved. And as a result, I have never been a shame person, Terry. That is just not something that resonated with me. Remember when the shame thing was so popular? Who was the author that was on that? You know who I'm talking about.
Bradshaw.
I'm okay, you're okay?
Bradshaw.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I never resonated with that. That just, for some reason, and I think what it was my masking my pain, that I couldn't even get anywhere close to shame. And as I got through this stuff this last week, I realized the shame that was so strong in me, and just me being I must not be wantable, and therefore I am ashamed. I must be somehow disgusting, reviling, and those came really clear to me. And man, those are difficult. That's difficult crap to deal with, to think of yourself that way.
Yes, it is. Yes, shame as at its heart is diminishing. It diminishes you.
Oh, to say the least. It makes you almost non-existent.
Yeah, it tears you up in pieces or parts, or there's lots of ways it attacks you. But yeah. Anyway, So you chose to do this route, but you've done other things, Charlie. So you're long past 40. I'm curious about the route, because I talk to people, and a lot of your listeners, the same thing, are on journeys where they're trying to get pieces of truth to help, right?
Yes.
Pieces of light to inform them, to make them better, and or self-discovery, and or enlightenment, if we use that word. And so to enable them to set down things that hinder them, or whatever that may be. And so there are many things that are tried and many things that are offered in our culture.
All this self-help crap that's out there is all about that. But you're at 40. You sort of come face to face with this child of you. Yeah, the death of my mother.
This is a whole new thing, right? So this is an interesting your journey begins then, sort of.
Yes, it began then, and there was I think the first stages of it began then, but when it became really profound was at retirement, when I had to deal with boredom and uselessness, and I could no longer hide behind productivity and make that my means of satisfaction. I had to find inner satisfaction. That is, that's moving up Maslow's chart. But nobody else said it's a thorny damn ladder that you're walking up barefoot.
Right.
And the higher up the ladder you go, if you're going up the ladder well, you're going up it with pain, because you have to deal enlightenment or ultimate satisfaction come with a true, genuine understanding of your core, your deepest core fears and pain. And once you can do that, for me, once I can do that, and not just I have to name it, and then I have to accept myself for it. Like today, I made you know what I did today while I was preparing for this podcast? I made the mistake. I never do this. I was dealing with email, and I had this email that I had to send that was frustrating with an individual. And so I was sending it to another person, and you know who I sent it to? I did. I sent it to the individual that I was frustrated with. I said, oh, my God, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't possibly send this to this person. And so I immediately sent out an apology, but, who knows what good it did. It was...
Yeah, and I just want to say to you, Charlie, I got that email from you, and it really did make my day. I'm just really grateful for that.
Yeah, but I have to, that, was wrong on my part, and hurting somebody was wrong, but I have to accept that. I don't have to necessarily love that, but I can still love myself, understanding I am flawed and I'm going to screw up and I'm going to do things, and I need to say my mea culpas and say I'm sorry. And then if this person is angry or distraught, just say, I get it. I understand.
Go back to this other thing which was helpful, is that you're at retirement, all of a sudden, all the things that you did in terms of activity and attention and distraction, all of it good, really,
yes.
masked, or made sure that you did not have the space, the silent space, like you had to do just in a really intense way recently, to look at something. So that's a big deal. What do you say to people, because talk about this with you, what do you say to people who just find something else to distract them because this is too much?
Well, I think I really don't know how to do it without a concentrated effort, and I think that effort does require, I don't know another route other than silence and solitude. I don't know another route to truly facing yourself, and it's not just, it doesn't happen over a day or even 2 days. I mean, it took a week for me to get there to where, toward the end of the week, I was having visions, unprovoked by anything, and just, I had a vision of someone I deeply, deeply love, and that this person had taken his life, and which has not. The person is not. Person is perfectly healthy and fine right now. But I had a vision that this person had done that, and the anger that arose in me, and that was the issue, that I've never really looked at myself as an angry person, but I am. And anger is deep in me, and I was angry with myself for not having clues. I was angry with the people that I thought had hurt this person. And then that was just a vehicle for me to understand the anger that resides within me, and how anger is an alternative, another number, that numbs me. If I express anger, and if I'm angry about something, it keeps me from having to deal with the issue that's making me angry. And the issue that's making me angry is people don't do things my way, and it's not so much about my way as it is about accepting that I'm valid, that I'm real, that I'm here, that I exist, that I have an idea, that I have a thought, and that people don't have to actually do it, but it's always wonderful if they ponder that. So back to your question of how does somebody actually do this? I don't know how to do it without intentionally going about accessing your deepest, most inner self. And that takes in there retreat centers. There's Buddhist retreat centers that do that. You can go to abbeys and express to the monks exactly what you're trying to do, and they would put you on a guided session of where you are having to deal with yourself. Go to somebody who has been through not solitude, but contemplation, not introverted solitude.
Yeah, and I hear you, and I've done many of these things, as you know. But I also know that people will come to me, or I'll even do the same thing. You'll say, "That sounds great, Charlie. I'm thrilled for you. That's a wonderful thing." So here I am, silent. Tell me what the steps are.
Well, those are my steps. It's a simple step. Take a week, 5 days. 5 days would probably be plenty. Take 5 days. Lock yourself in a room. No phones, no computers, no books, nothing to read. Only a place where you are truly stuck with yourself. And at first, your conscious self is really great at providing distraction and listening for outside noises, thinking all kinds of thoughts, all kinds of issues, your to-do list, what do I have to do? And by the third day, that all goes away because you have nowhere else to go but inside. But it's a time-consuming thing. Look at the prophets. Look at I'm not talking just the Christian prophets. I'm talking Buddha. Look how long Buddha went off into times of silence and times of deep contemplation about. He wasn't thinking about life, the universe, and everything. It would be my opinion now is that he was contemplating himself, and he was contemplating what obstacle he had. And once he had done that, then he could contemplate about the wonders of life, as Buddha so eloquently did.
So, what were the truths? And I say truths. Let me use it as a metaphor. We're on a boat. We all have boats, but if we don't tether our boat to something, our boat is out at sea, being buffeted. So, at some point, you have to tether your boat to something, and there was something you tethered your boat to.
And what did I tether my boat to?
Was it just an awareness that this Charlie is okay? Was that it?
That this Charlie, I couldn't tether myself to that until I had recognized first. I was afloat. I was adrift. There was no tethering to begin with.
I completely understand.
It was adrift at first, and I had to recognize those things about myself and the word, I'm telling you, the word that just kept coming up, and I couldn't identify it, I couldn't describe it in tangible terms, but the word that just kept coming up to me was disgusting. And I don't know why that term came up with me, but it came up with me in all sorts of venues, different forms, but that I had to accept that and say, no, I am not disgusting. That is part of my nature. That is part of who I am, and to truly accept myself. I believe Jesus was right on and never paid attention to when he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And we only pay attention to the first part of that clause, or first part of that sentence, and not the clause. The clause is as yourself, because if I were to love people as I love me, I'd be a prick. There's just, because I just did not love myself. Did not. I would never treat other people the way I treat myself. Ever. And now that I have come to this full circle, I don't know if it's a circle or if it's a 180. I'm not quite sure right now. But it's a polar thinking that it is okay for me to be broken and to have frailties. That is the human condition. There is nothing we can do about that human condition, and to accept.
Well, let me stop you, because this is the helpful part about this, Charlie, is that some people saying, I accept myself. I just hear, okay, I just need to say the words, I accept myself. But it's broader than that. Accepting yourself meant naming some things about yourself that didn't seem unpleasant to look at, but after, with acceptance, you realize, no, that's who I am.
Oh, you are so right on. if you think you're essentially okay with a few foibles, it's very easy to accept yourself. But when you recognize how flawed you really are, how intrinsically flawed you really are, and the again, disgusting actions you can take toward other people and toward yourself, until you understand those and accept those, you've really never gotten to acceptance. You've really, it's just because you don't know what you're accepting. If, the old, Paul mentioned a book, just a few minutes ago, quietly, I'm okay, you're okay. And I liked what my friend Tim Timmons said, I'm not okay, you're not okay, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. But we really need to know I'm not okay.
It was a similar kind of thing when back in the day when you and I were doing our other kind of work. The big thing then was the big book then was Codependent No More, and I remembered reading that book and feeling like crap because at the end I was still codependent very much, So I must have misread the book somehow. So I had to go back through the book to figure out what part I missed because I didn't get it because I'm still codependent at the end of the book. And I to this day I say I have nothing wrong with her book, Melody Beattie's book. I have nothing wrong with the book, but why can't the title be Codependent Still, Very Much, but Very Okay? What's wrong?
Yes.
What's wrong with naming some of that? That doesn't mean I act out on it. That's the key, isn't it? Isn't that the power of it? Is that there's some things of you that you named, but in naming them, that means you don't act out on some of them.
That gives you that gives you power back. That regains power to you to not do.
Because it's almost like you're at the mercy of a victim of those things, right?
That is a wonderful thought, and let's ponder that thought as we take a break. And I want to come back to being a victim of your thoughts, but let's take a quick break. Hedges and the next chapter with Charlie, and we are in the deepest conversation I think I've ever had. And Terry and I are talking for the first time since I returned from a contemplative retreat, and we're talking about the very dark discoveries of myself. And this is the kind of conversation Terry and I would have over the phone. So you just happen to be a part of a deep conversation that we are having, and we were just ending on the idea of victimhood. And that if you don't, and I will continue to repeat the phrase, that if that which is not recognized cannot be reconciled, and if you do not recognize your deep intrinsic flaws, you cannot recognize them, you cannot reconcile them, you cannot redeem them, and so you are stuck as a result. What I think, Terry, I think that's the heart of being a victim. Is being stuck because they can't.
Correct.
They can't recognize what the real issue is.
Correct. You're at the mercy of them. Just like you see, just like any child, acting out in anger, and you say, "What the heck's wrong with that child?" They're at the mercy of that.
And we continue to do that till we're 70 years old.
No, actually, it goes to 86.
It goes to 86? And then at 86, you're free.
Yeah, well, actually, your lack of memory takes over everything.
Yeah, your dementia's, it's done.
Yeah. No, and that's it continues. Well, what's fascinating is that people, and I think one of the benefits to this that did for you is that this is not simply just sort of a behavioral thing you, quote, need to take care of and find a way to fix, but it's a part of who Charlie is, and embracing that was part of the process.
God, that's brilliant, Terry, because it is not we're not talking about a fixable thing. We are talking about an understandable thing, an acknowledged thing. We're talking about a deep truth that resides in me and will continue to reside in me. Those things will continue to be a part of me. They've been a part of me for 70 years. They will continue to be a part of me, and I must accept that. And although no longer by unmasking it, I take control away from it. And I am the one who becomes master of my destiny, master of my fate, given what God has in mind. But to the degree that I can master it as a human being, I become much more masterful over it than it being masterful over me, because when it's masterful over me, I'm a victim. It's something else. It's something else's problem. It's not me. Something or someone else's problem.
Yeah.
But Paul was asking me, he says he wants to hear more about steps. What was day 1? What was day 2? What was day 3? And, I really wish I could give the listeners, here's your 5 keys. Here are the 5 things you need to do. And there are no such things. It is not that's the American way of thinking. That is not an Eastern illogical yet ever impactful way of thinking. It is the Western. It is why churches are so popular, because they give you the 5 things you need to do. You do this, you're going to be okay, and you're going to heaven. And that's the end of the story. Yeah. Well, life just does not work that way.
Yeah, so I'm going to rephrase it as steps, because I see it now it's Terry, the landscaper and gardener, talking to you. So instead of this, I wholeheartedly agree with you about the steps thing, because what are steps for one person are not the steps for another. However, there are ingredients that create the space for awareness. You named some of them. It had to do with solitude. It had to do with silence. It had to do with a framework. But there are other ingredients of that too. And some of those ingredients had to do with how you processed it. I don't know what the other ingredients are. But those ingredients are essentially part of it. So silence is one. Solitude is one. Is that necessary?
More important than silence. I mean, a sequestered solitude that you can have no distractions, no people, no phones, no reading materials, no computers. You are faced with yourself. And if you want to talk to yourself, that's fine. So silence is important, but nowhere near as important as a genuinely sequestered silence. I remember reading a book a long time ago in my hippie days, The Teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda. And Carlos Castaneda wanted to go to this Native American healer, wisdom healer. And the first thing that Don Juan, who was a healer, told him to sit on this porch for 2 days until you find your spot.
Right.
And he just went from place to place to place until he found his spot. That was his spot. That's what we're trying to do on this journey. That thought came to my mind quite frequently, to find my spot. And I had my spot on my bed that I would either sit up or lie down, but I stayed in the same spot all the time. And I had a chair outside my door. I would sit in that chair, and those were my 2 spots. That was it. I would not sit in a different place. A different place was not my spot, was not my comfort zone, was not where the truth came to me. We need to find a spot, a place. It's like your place of sanctuary.
No, I agree with you, and it's going back to the sports metaphor which we talked about, because of your son, is as a golfer, I have a particular spot I go to just so I settle myself. So I get that, and I get it in a bigger picture too. So that's good. I have two questions for you. One, what if you do what you did, and at the end of it you say, I must have screwed this up because nothing happened?
I would be pretty disappointed. I don't know what I would do because it would be as if I did nothing. But I don't think you can. I don't know that's possible.
See,
and
I knew that was the answer, Charlie. That's the whole point is that when we measure it the way we measure other stuff in our culture, we have to measure wins and losses rather than I spent time with myself, and that's a win regardless.
It is. It is. It's a win, and it's not as Roran Merton said. It is a discomforting. It is only when we hit discomfort that we are beginning to get to the truth.
But you didn't run from discomfort. That's the power. That's the good thing.
Right. No.
Yes.
I did exactly the opposite. I sought it out.
Yeah.
I welcomed it.
Because you knew it was not your enemy.
I knew it was my obstacle, but it wasn't my own enemy, because that would mean I am my own enemy, and I did not care to choose to be me as my own enemy, because it is part of me that I'm going for. So I was fully open to understand me.
So I have to ask you another question, because I have the role of asking some questions, but I have no idea what the time is for the podcast or when to quit. So let me ask you this. So I'm listening to you out in the audience, Charlie, and I have a full-time job and I work my butt off, but I'm amenable. I'm reading books about how to be my best self and the self-discovery and all of that stuff, and I'm working hard on that. But how do I do what you did if I can't go away for that many days?
I think one thing I do think there's a lot of aid to reading the right books, the right people, and setting a time for, I think we should all set a time for deep thought. I have my morning rituals. Now, not everybody has as much time as I have, but if you get up early enough, I know the deepest thinkers, Jocko Willink gets up at 4:30 every morning. And I know
people... That's what time I get up. I'm glad you call it deepest thinker, but I get up at 4:30 every morning, yes.
And during that time, I eat, then I meditate, then I read some inspirational reading. And right now I'm reading the Tao Te Ching, and I read one entry per day of Lao Tzu. And then I journal. And I allow myself, I will not look at email, I will not read anything else other than whatever my inspirational reading is. So I am focused. I think that is the beginning. I think that's a great way to begin this journey, is to be open to non-distraction.
Yeah, so just that verb alone, your verb focus, is powerful, which I think is a big deal. In other words, you said, I'm not going to look at emails, et cetera, to distract. In other words, just the choice to do that, that pays off for that space. Give yourself the space. Tell me where your space is. Tell me where your time is. Deep thinking, you called it. Tell me where that is. Well, I only have 10 minutes. Okay, tell me where that 10-minute space is.
That's important. There's a container I read this morning. Lao Tzu was talking about a cup, and that most frequently we will look at the cup, the container, as what's important. And he says it's not the cup that's important; it's the space that the cup provides. It's the emptiness that's important. Because
there's a story I tell in some of my workshops about the Zen. The guy goes to the Zen Buddhist, American guy, businessman. He wants to have success and well-being, but he wants to go there to get it. And And the Buddhist monk says, well, we're going to have a cup of tea first. And the guy said, I don't want a cup of tea. I just want you to give me the advice. And he says, no, we're going to have tea first. So he says, okay. So he sits down, and he's pouring the tea, and he keeps pouring, and now the cup is full. It's overflowing the cup. The American businessman is like, what the hell? You're spilling crap. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Why are we doing this? It's all over the table. And the Buddhist guy says, because your spirit is just like that cup. You came to me for inner peace or whatever, but just like the cup, you're too full and there's no space. If you want that, we need to make space in the cup.
And I love that metaphor. I love that story. You know, I've heard you tell it before, and it resonates with me every time I hear you tell it. Understanding that space, if filled with the right ingredient, never fills up. And I want to conclude our time together because it's really with what I think is the most important key takeaway I came from this, and that is the importance of love. And it's a very definite. It's not a romantic kind of love. It's not, the wowie wooey. Oh, God loves me unconditionally, no matter what. It's not that. It is. I wish I could define it in words, but it's a whole new powerful meaning of I want to make synonymous love and acceptance. That once I accept, I can love with compassion, with empathy, with understanding, with patience, and that kind of love will never fill the cup because it is always giving away. There's not enough of it to fill it without me giving it away and always creating space for more. There is always space for love. There is not space for revenge, remorse, self-denial, self-hatred. Those overflow, and they're non-exhaustive, and they are totally unhelpful. But love is key. One of the songs that were sung to us, 4 nights a week we did these little ceremonies of where they sang to us and led us in guided meditation. And one of the songs that was sung was, "Could you love and could you be loved?" And it was just a beautiful song, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful note to me. Can I love? Yes. Can I be loved? Yes. But not without having to think of it. Yes, I can be loved. And in the being loved, that is where I can give love. The question is, am I, and a word we haven't even spoken of, am I vulnerable enough to accept love? And with that, and if I am, with that vulnerable acceptance, because I must be vulnerable, then I can give it freely and I can give it generously.
Well said, my friend.
Thank you. Terry, thank you so much for listening and joining in on the recollections of my journey, and thank you for walking alongside me in this one, and I want to thank you, friend, for walking alongside me for damn near 40 years now, and you have always accepted me. Maybe more than in spite of my foibles, but because of my foibles, and I've never felt judged by you, and I want to express my love for you and my gratitude for you in that.
The feeling is mutual, my friend. The feeling is mutual.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank all our listeners for your attention to this odd chapter today, and finally, thank you for tuning in to the next chapter with Charlie. And please be sure to check out our website at thenextchapter.life. It is filled with podcasts and blogs. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off for now. See you later.